the work of an Iowa-based organization, Bailing Out Benji, kind of helped spark this investigation. Can you tell me about that?
That resolution filed in King County Superior Court requires the company to pay the state $3.75 million with interest.
Bailing Out Benji regularly looks through these records of dogs' movement from state to state.
Bailing Out Benji
played a key part in unraveling a nationwide puppy scheme.
Bailing Out Benji,
an organization that's been working across the country to stop the pipeline of puppy mill breeders.
Bailing Out Benji.
I will use my voice because they don't have one, and I will keep doing it until there are no more puppy mill dogs. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to this week's episode of Truth, Lies, and Puppy Mills, Bailing Out Benji's podcast. I'm Mindy Callison. I'm here with Alexis Bell and Kristen Petty, and we're going to talk about questions, I guess.
Yes.
Not really talk about anything, but people, every episode, we say, if you have any questions, let us know. And so we've compiled a few of them, and today we're going to kind of break them down and get into some conversations.
Yeah.
So,
unfortunately, we have actual videos.
Yeah.
So we reached out to folks who had questions and we asked them if they could record themselves asking the question. So that's fun as well.
And Jalane's going to do a fun little patchwork episode.
Yeah.
The inserts, and it'll be fun. I'm excited to see the final product and answer these questions.
I love how you're spreading kindness and positivity within the dog industry. What would be the best way to get more people on board with this way of thinking? Do you think big influencers, big organizations coming together? What would be the best way, do you think?
Yeah, I think it starts at home. So earlier in the office, we were talking about binary and how you're good if you do this, you're bad if you do this. Because a friend of mine buys a dog. Now I can't like her dog. Now I can't be friends with her dog. Now I have weird feelings about her because she bought a dog. I think that's where this starts.
Yeah.
And it starts with, instead of being like, oh, did you rescue your dog? Did you, leading with questions or a way of thinking that maybe makes the other person feel guilty or shameful for their purchase. Is going to make that space immediately unsafe.
Mm-hmm.
And so me as an animal welfare advocate, me as someone who has access to information, I want to be the safe person that people have no problem emailing or texting and saying, hey, so-and-so is going to buy a dog. What do you think? What is this breeder? Do you have a recommendation? Where do I find a breed rescue? I always want to be that resource, which is why we say lead with kindness and compassion.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it starts.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, I mean, that makes me think of taking a page out of Jonathan Van Ness, lead with curiosity, lead with kindness. Yeah, I think that's helpful, creating those safe spaces, because I think for so long we've had that adapt, don't shop has had such a large influence in creating the shame. But if I might say it and people might not like it, but if a dog is being ethically bred, what is there to be upset about that they were? I don't know where I'm going.
Why are we offended
Yeah.
when someone we know chooses to buy a dog?
Yeah, which I know is loaded because the sheltering community is so overburdened. We can recognize that, and it's stressful, and there's burnout, and that probably doesn't feel like the greatest thing when you're overwhelmed and then someone buys, but I don't know, maybe stepping back and knowing that this is stressful now, but hopefully it won't always be, and people can still make their choices and be responsible about them if they bought from an ethical breeder who's breeding with intention, and they're not their dogs aren't ending up in rescues or shelters. Having that perspective and broadening your mind of okay, well, what was the situation, and maybe sometimes taking ourselves out of the picture might help. I know that's really hard, but taking ourselves out and just trying to see from other people's perspectives, and maybe it wouldn't feel so much as a personal attack on us.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's part of it. People feel that personal attack because they are in the industry, but when you take yourself out of it and you start realizing so many other things people care about, food choices. What do you eat? What is on your plate? Do you have animals on your plate? Well, guess what? That animal was killed for your food, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there is a world of people who automatically think you're cruel, not you, Alexis,
no,
because you choose to eat meat, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's because of my personal choice to be plant-based, I could scream at every person I know that has a hamburger because my personal choice is to not, right? And so I think that's part of it. We have to determine what is our personal beliefs, what is our personal mantra, and how can we make sure that we are having relationships with the people in our lives that honor our personal choices, but we're not forcing them onto others.
Yeah, because we all have different experiences and make different choices, and everyone doesn't have to make the same choices I make or you make. So,
Kristen, I saw you smile big when JVN was mentioned. I'm sure that was a highlight of the episode.
Yeah.
Big fan.
Let's
Yeah.
get curious.
Yeah. I think too that we have to, I mean, we're talking about people who are buying pets. I think in the scope of this question too, we have to talk about people within the animal welfare world as well. And how do we hold space for kindness and compassion with each other, as we sometimes have different views on how things should be done. And we were just talking about this because of a group we participated in with some other people from various corners of the world that we work in, and talking about, like, we don't all agree on all things, but how can we still come together and have conversations and just keep talking to keep moving the conversation forward. And we talk about, we hate systems, like we don't hate systems, but systems can be
I hate systems.
Systems can be broken, but I will die on the hill that the people within the systems, there's always hope for change and connection with the people within the systems. And so to remember that separation, that just because we might perceive that someone is on a different side of the issue than we are, it's the issue, it's not the person. And so to just kind of always keep that, try to keep that communication and that open-mindedness and that curiosity that our good friend JVN, that's what we need. We need JVN.
Yeah,
get him into this conversation.
How do we get them?
And
come on.
Honestly, if Mindy Callison and Alexis Bell of Bailing Out Benji can walk into commercial kennels, Amish kennel, like if we can have these conversations with people who have nothing in common with us, nothing on paper. I mean, Alexis and I are from the English world. We have a completely different yet lens as young women coming up in this animal welfare, politically charged climate.
Yeah.
And we are meeting husbands and wives and families, and they're letting us into their community. And it's just, if we can do it, you can talk to your neighbor about how to buy a dog safely. And I don't mean that to be like dismissive, but we can all do hard things. And I think it's really important to just remember, like, you are talking to a human. And our world right now ignores the fact that we are all people, and they want to demonize and they want to separate. And I mean, they as in society. Society wants fighting, and us versus them. It's good for algorithms, it's good for profits, it's whatever, but these are just people and it's your community, so start there. And then bigger picture, we'd love organizations to want to have the same mentality we do, that you're not bad if you buy. Because there's a whole world of people who can never buy can never adopt, and will never adopt. So if we say they're all bad, you just cut out a huge part of the world who will never listen to you or come to you for advice. Great question.
What are the short-term and long-term effects of the puppy mills on the dogs themselves, and how does Bailing Out Benji address these impacts?
So that's really out of our realm. I don't want to say it's completely out of our realm because we care about the welfare of dogs. But I can't say we can accurately measure the welfare of dogs. However, there are breeders who are retiring their dogs earlier than we've ever seen before. When I first got into this world, there were a lot of breeders who would dump dogs in our vicinity with us. I don't want to say with us because we were never an adoption agency, but with our rescue partners. And they were surrendering 15-year-old dogs, 16-year-old dogs who had been bred their entire lives, who basically were going to a rescue to find a home for a few months before they pass away. It wasn't necessarily the dog getting to live its best life. I think that we are seeing a change now in some of these breeders who are trying to be more humane. They are trying to make sure that every dog that is raised in their facility has A Way Out has a path forward for adoption, and they are trying to make sure those, like we're talking about the ENS training for the puppies, they're doing similar things for the adult dogs. They're being handled and socialized. Again, not all. There are way too many facilities that are still not taking care of the parent dogs, and those are the facilities that we're trying to pay attention to, which is why in this like public, not public fight discourse regarding canine care, we're just saying like, why be mad about a program who's trying to make kennels more humane, as opposed to not having that, and then having even more kennels that have no access to ENS training and education. And so I don't know if that answers the question, or if you have anything to add.
I don't know. I guess speaking to like our field research experience and some of the rescue work too, I mean, some of the adult dogs that we've been seeing in the kennels that we've been visiting, like they're nothing like what you would think a puppy mill dog is. They're happy. They come up to you.
They bring you toys.
They bring you toys. They want to play with you. They want to sit in your lap. They want pets. Like, so the kennels that we have seen and who are taking those extra steps, like long term, like I do think that these dogs are being socialized. They are being prepped for homes because they will be planning to be exiting the breeding facilities that they're in. So like, I don't know, just speaking to that, it does seem like there are these places that are making the efforts to make sure that they're not making puppy mill puppies that are under socialized, that are scared of people, that they don't know what stairs are or what a leash is, and they don't want to interact with people. So I guess that's just the other side of what we can maybe speak to about short and long-term effects, I guess.
And then as someone who's fostered and adopted puppy mill dogs, like dogs straight from puppy mills, you know, like Eleanor peed and pooped in my house every single day until she died.
Yeah.
Like Eleanor, we could not potty train her. And it was because her safety was eliminating after humans left.
Yeah.
Eleanor spent her whole life with Steve Cruzy. She was born in Michelle Cruzy's facility, which is Brian McKeery's facility now. And then she was sold to Daniel Gingrich at some point where she was living in the most inhumane conditions. This dog, if she ever had human contact, it was not happy. She was probably scared all the time. So coming to our home after being in a wonderful foster home for a while, she still had a lot of barriers that she had to overcome. And my God, was she the happiest girl when she was at my side, but still doing events, she would shake. She'd get in my car and she would vibrate. Like, she was brave and she would work through it, and she wanted to be with her people. So she would work through her fears, but she was still a very scared dog that was very under socialized and didn't have the veterinary care she needed the whole time. So there's a whole flip side to this where there are dogs in breeding facilities that even if they get rescued can never be handled. Dogs are terrified coming out of this. They might not ever trust humans because, again, genetically, their parents never trusted humans and their grandparents never trusted humans. And we're breeding this fear into man's best friend. Again, not a scientist, but you see that in some of these puppy mill dogs. And so there is that change. We are seeing some breeders on that commercial scale trying hard to say that they care about every dog on their property, and they are proving it. And we can see that when we visit. So that's a hard question, but hopefully we got to an answer.
Yeah.
Hey all, Jalaine here. I'm popping in for a second to read questions for Cindy. On CVIs, for gender I've seen neutered male. Why would a breeder neuter an 8-week-old puppy that it is selling to a pet store?
This is a great question, Cindy.
I mean, reasons we've seen before is like medical issues. You know, when there's a thing called cryptorchidism, where like, I don't know how deep we want to get into it. A male dog's like testicles don't like drop fully, or like one gets stuck up and one's down. It's super fun,
I think that's genetic, right?
Yeah, it is genetic, and so they do neuter them because like that's something you don't want to pass on, and so they do get neutered for those reasons. So like my main thing would be like it was like a health thing for males to be neutered.
And would that be documented? So Cindy's saying she's seen this on a CVI.
Yeah.
So would it also say why on the CVI that it was? I mean, clearly not, or else she wouldn't
No,
be asking. I
they'd
guess.
probably like say like cryptorchid or like something about like the testicles, like, and then you can make the connection
Okay.
because it'll be like sometimes they're noted like NM, which means like neutered male, and then you
Yeah.
can like see if they noted any health thing, but sometimes they don't. So yeah, sometimes we don't really know. But do you have any idea of
I was going to say, we also see it sometimes with hernias. Like if they're
Yeah.
fixing an umbilical hernia or something, it'll
Mhm.
say umbilical hernia repair.
Yeah.
And then it'll say neutered or spayed.
Because those are hernias can be genetic as well.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's really interesting though, because we saw the CVIs the same way Cindy is talking about them, where
Yeah.
you just read the thing on the piece of paper and it's a medical note. We keep all those medical notes separately because
Yeah.
we're fascinated. We want to know
Yeah.
which breeders have the most medical notes.
Yep. What's consistent in their breeding program?
Do they have genetic diseases? Are we seeing notes of like, what do we see the most? Not parvo, what's Giardia?
Giardia, yeah.
We see Giardia antigen.
Especially from Wisconsin specifically.
Yeah, so we see these notes all the time, and so we just kind of log them.
Yeah.
But it was really interesting. We did visit a broker earlier this year and got to stand by his vet as puppies were coming in for puppy intake day.
Yeah.
And we got to see them write those notes, and it was very, very interesting. But the way, and not everyone does it the same.
No.
So sometimes it's the breeder sending it to their veterinarian and getting the dog neutered or whatever.
Yeah.
Other times that's happening at the brokering facility. So it depends on how that broker, and of course they have a vet that's doing it.
Yeah.
But it depends on how that broker operates. So sometimes the facility would rather it be done by the breeder's vet before the puppy gets there. And other times it's at the brokering facility, and then they have time to heal before they go on the transport.
Yeah.
But that's not a lot of heal time if you think about it. And that is pretty concerning when we're talking about cross-country transports anyway. So we do often see little 8-week-old puppies who have just had some kind of surgery, and then they get, granted, the vet is checking them out before they leave.
Yeah.
In theory, we'll say it that way. And then they go to the pet store, and who knows what that incision looks like. There was just a post on social media talking about something like this, and they had made the allegation that the hernia was repaired at the store.
Oh.
And I question that because we always see all of that happening before the puppies leave the facility, heading to their final destination.
Yeah, because like when we did visit the broker too, like they would talk with the breeder and say like, hey, you need to get this done before we'll take them, or like they put the dog on, what is it, like consignment, so like still open to buy, but like they have to get this done for the broker to buy it and then ship it to the puppy. So like there's still steps that at least this broker tried to do. Can't really speak to what other brokers are doing. So
but that's been the really interesting part of our field research, is being dropped into these scenarios where we're seeing stuff in real time. And kind of getting to ask these questions, whether or not it's just a tool in the toolbox. It's more information, whether or not we fully believe the source we're always getting our information from. We'll see.
More context to the records, and then it also shows us the variance between veterinarians and who's doing what, and what's being accepted for puppies being shipped and what's not.
And every broker has their own qualifications for what's okay. Every pet store has different qualifications. So I think we've now strayed away from the original question of animals getting spayed or neutered before. But
I have 2 follow-up questions.
Okay.
Because this is all new to me. This is like, I'm literally
we haven't
ping-ponging my head between the two of you. I'm
lots
like,
of new information.
This is a new language. So I have questions. This is one of those where we'll be like, we'll do another episode to answer all of Kristen's questions.
We could have a broker on if we wanted. I just think we'd be eaten alive a little bit, but someday.
Okay, fair enough. I'll talk to anybody. So 2 questions, and I have to remember what they are because that's hard for me. You mentioned genetic. So some of these things that they may be neutering the dog as a fix could be something genetic. A responsible breeder, then we would expect, as you said, we like to track that medical stuff. So if we're seeing one breeder who is consistently having to do surgeries on dogs because of this issue, we would expect them to stop breeding those dogs.
They should be taken out of their breeding program. Yeah.
Okay.
And so when we were we've heard from a few brokers, because we do ask a lot of questions, and thankfully people answer from their lens and their perspective. We ask them, like, what does that look like? So if you are working with one breeder and they are constantly putting out puppies with hernias, The one broker we spoke to said that they keep a bunch of notes in their system. And so if they're noticing that the same sire and dam are producing puppies with an issue, they communicate back to the breeder and they're like, hey, you need to stop putting these two together or we will no longer be buying puppies from these two.
Okay.
And then Devon talked about it a little in his episode, I think, where it's like, if the two parents are maybe genetic carriers, but it's like far enough away in the genetic testing that they do, they might try to try and breed out some of the worst conditions. I'm not really like a scientist on that part of it, but there is communication sometimes. I would say that's probably on the spectrum though, right? When you've got the people who are trying to do better and trying to change the industry from the inside, they probably have higher standards and more communication than the broker we see that also started a sham nonprofit. Right. Like they might be asking less questions of their breeders than others. So
okay, so my second question then, maybe closer back to Cindy's original question. Are there, that we know of, are there malicious reasons why they would be neutering an 8-week-old puppy that weren't like for a medical condition? So I feel like that maybe was kind of the basis of her question, is like, why would someone, is there something that is more concerning that they might be neutering this dog that early for? Or would it pretty much, it should be, I mean, we believe if they're doing there's a medical reason.
I think coming to mind for me, I don't know, usually I think it comes down to health things, or like maybe there is something in the genetics that they're like, hey, we don't want to pass this on if someone does happen to buy the puppy and breed them.
I mean, in theory, it's an expense to do the surgery. They're not going to do that if there's not a legitimate reason why they have to.
That's what my brain thinks on. I don't know if you have a different perspective.
No, my thought is though, if more breeders would neuter puppies and spay puppies before they sold them, that might also help with that overpopulation a little bit.
What's like the veterinarian guideline? Do we know?
We could have 3 vets
like we've
on,
talked about this,
and all 3 vets would have a different opinion on this.
Is 8 weeks like
8 weeks is like what rescues and shelters do, like because of, and puppies and kittens, right? Like you want them adopted out. Some places will do, like if you're adopting a puppy that's not spayed, they want to wait till maybe she's 6 months or 8 months or whatever that looks like. The rescue will give a reimbursement back. But that's kind of what some people say is standard, like spay neuter before they get adopted. Where others for genetics say after a year or after 2 years for big dogs because of joint growth.
That's it's the science. There's been like studies on it too. It's because of like certain like growth hormones in dogs, especially with like big breeds. I think it's especially important to maybe wait a little bit. So it's really up in the air. Like people make their choices. Pet population is obviously a big issue, but there are people that do wait a certain amount of time to make sure that there aren't health issues later on, so they can fully develop a little bit more past
and I would say that what we kind of see, or what I kind of see in the community, like when you're talking to people who have bought dogs, usually the people who buy large breed dogs are advised to not. And so they're the ones who are being educated on those growth hormones. It's like hips and knees. Like if you're making this dog a giant, like ox, you want to make sure that he has everything. I mean, this is what the argument is. He has everything he needs, but you still want to be that responsible pet owner and not have accidental litters.
Right.
So it's a balance, which is why some people are like spay early because we have too many. I mean, truly, we could ask 10 veterinarians and like do a panel and it would just be a debate among them because it's heated. And then the public is even worse.
And then medically, would anyone agree on it's too early at this point medically to do it?
Depending on weight, we hear that. Like if the puppy or the kitten weighs not enough, they will not do it at 8 weeks or whatever. So it's usually on the veterinarian. I don't think anybody reputable is not going to just spay and neuter an animal that's too young. But what does too young mean?
Right.
That's on the spectrum of Yep. So it's interesting. That's a great question.
Great.
Cindy's next question asks, on CVIs, when an age is listed under 8 weeks or 56 days, or a health issue is documented, what steps are taken by bailing out Benji? Is the State Department of Agriculture notified?
Yeah, so this is a great question. It's what we deal with a lot when we work with CVIs. We don't just look at them, guys. We are a very active group. We love our complaints. Um, we do file complaints because you can, if they're USDA licensed, like that is a violation. They do get in trouble for selling underage puppies, especially if they're consistently getting selling underage puppies. Like that is a systemic issue. That's something majorly big with their facility. But depending on state, though, some states have a lower requirement. I think it's like Wisconsin does say like you can ship puppies at like 7 weeks. I don't know exactly how maybe that conflicts with like federal, but if you're shipping outside and you're USDA licensed, like those puppies need to be 8 weeks or older. And if we see it on a CVI that someone is selling underage puppies and shipping them, we do file a complaint with the USDA, and then we can also file a complaint with the state if that state licenses and that meets their regulations. So we do file complaints about that because that's a big no-no. And then also for health stuff, we've kind of talked, I don't know, I've talked with a Wisconsin inspector about some things. Like we saw a lady that was like shipping like dogs with like open fontanelles, and he had kind of explained like it's kind of a common thing for certain breeds of dogs. But I think these things are a little bit more subjective, and I haven't exactly seen inspectors want to like act on the medical side of things too much. So it is more like we can file complaints on the age requirements because that's a set rule that they're supposed to follow. The medical is a bit more open, I think.
Yeah, I would add, so with Wisconsin, you're right, it's 7 weeks in state, 8 weeks federal. If you're USDA licensed, you have to default to federal, which is where we catch them. And so I would say we forensically audit. That's a phrase we've been adding to our lingo because some groups look at CVIs for information because the CVI tells you breeder to pet store, boom, that's all you need to know. We forensically audit these. So we are looking at birthdays. We are looking at these genetic health issues. And we are catching many breeders. I can't say a lot, but many breeders who are selling puppies and kittens underage. And then when we file complaints, we are very specific. We say this is the CVI number. We say this is the date of shipment. And we file it on the breeder on the USDA level, and then we see those violations come up later. So of course, what we've learned through our process is when anyone files a complaint with the USDA, you have to put the city and state of the breeder, and then it goes to that inspector. So then it is on that inspector to follow up with your complaint. And that is why Bailing Out Benji's complaints get followed up on very quickly because we give them all of the information. So we have seen many USDA licensees who've gotten violations for selling under 56 days, but we also see it on the state level. In Missouri, we caught an unlicensed cat breeder actually selling 5-week-old kittens to a Utah pet store. And I will say, and Alexis, we see this all the time, the dates on the CVIs, we're not filing a complaint if it's 55 days because you don't always know exactly when the puppy was shipped and stuff, right?
Unless the shipping date was really on there. And sometimes they don't conveniently put it on there. So
but we try to be very careful and also account for error. But in this case, we were like 5 weeks. That's very odd. This is either a typo or they're doing something not great. Filed a complaint with Missouri, and that breeder got a violation because they were breeding cats without a license and selling underage kittens. But then our name kind of pops up on those complaints sometimes, and it's fun to be able to track that. But yeah, we do see it, unfortunately. So do you have any questions about age limits?
No, I don't. Now that was very helpful. I did when the question was first asked. I was like, oh, I hadn't thought about that either. So.
But that's again the hard part. Back to Wisconsin. If Wisconsin is telling breeders actively 7 weeks, and the USDA is saying 8, it isn't quite. It shows you the difference in the laws, and if it's not communicated well, it's really hard for those breeders to sometimes know.
And do they? So I think you said it, but is it the state law or the USDA law then that wins in Wisconsin?
Interstate transport is going to be federal.
Okay, so even though Wisconsin says 7 weeks, they still, if they're shipping out of state, that animal needs to be 8 weeks.
Only if you're USDA licensed. Yes. So if you are a state licensed breeder or if you're just someone sending a dog across the state lines, 7 weeks is the minimum.
Okay.
And that's why it's confusing.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And so then I would say the breeders probably should know, but like the
Right.
public, if they're
Right.
getting a 7-week-old puppy, they're not necessarily in the know on
Yeah.
license type.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah.
What do you think would be the most efficient and the easiest way to get across to the general public how to research a breeder since the state laws vary? I know we have the USDA and your search engine, which is awesome. But Pennsylvania, for example, has stricter laws. So yes, obviously everybody follows the USDA if they're supposed to. But since the state laws vary, is there a way to kind of streamline that to make it even more efficient?
Yeah. So I would argue that our search engine fills a lot of resource gaps right now that have never been out there.
Mm-hmm.
Our search engine is not just USDA.
Mm-mm.
We have painstakingly taken the time to go through every single state's accessible records and make them public where we can. So always going first to our website is wonderful, bailingoutbenji.com, as Kristen very, very eloquently said it earlier. But also we still say, show me the mommy, research the breeder, go visit when you're able to. Like, just because we have said that there are some commercial kennels that are not causing harm, we're not asking people to rush out and buy from these kennels, right?
No.
There are still breeders in your community that you can find on many websites. You can, again, double check on ours, but meeting these people and seeing how the dogs live and seeing if that's someone you want to do business with, like you're bringing a new family member into your home, get to know where that dog came from is always a really good first step. Yeah. And then, us as a resource is helpful.
Yeah.
Do we have, and I don't know if this has anything to do with her question or not, but do we have on our website a way where people can see or link to the USDA licensing standards, and then for each state that has such things? So, is that something that would be useful, or is that just?
It's in our database. I mean, we could make it public for sure. I don't know how many, like the general public buying is probably trying to buy close to home unless they're buying online, and then it might
that's
be
what I thought.
further
So like
away.
someone from Pennsylvania, could they go to our site and be like, okay, what are Pennsylvania's rules for breeders?
Yeah, we don't have
No, we've talked
Or is
about
that just really not useful for consumers anyway?
I think that's more useful for advocates, like Shannon asking, right? Like I think the regulations matter for advocates.
Yeah.
The general public, Kristen, walking into this, you didn't know about regulations.
No.
You knew enough to text me and say, hey, my neighbor's buying a dog. Is this person okay?
Right.
Yeah.
You did not care about the regulations in Iowa or Iowa standards or whether the person across the street from you needs to have a license because they've had 2 litters of puppies or whatever. Like you as a person did not care. So I just think that, we should have some kind of resource. And we've talked about kind of tweaking our state articles to reflect more of that legislative lens.
Yeah.
But again, I think that is way more helpful for advocates than people.
Yeah. Because I'm thinking as like a buying public, like they're gonna go off vibes. I think the vibes is gonna be the best way that they're gonna be able to tell, is this place a puppy mill? And that's why it's so important, like you said, to go see the mommy, go see the facility, because if you walk into a facility and it's sad and the dogs are sad, like you're going to be able to tell. But if the dogs are happy, they're greeting you, they want to love on you, like that to me, as if I was like part of the buying public, that would say so much more to me than me trying to understand legislation or rules or anything. So,
and I think that word is so important. Like people are going to laugh at us. We talk about vibes a lot. We talk about feelings a lot, but truly, if you are a young couple, you just bought a house and you're going to buy a puppy for the first time, and you're walking into a breeder's home, the vibes are what matter.
Yeah.
Except I'm going to be that person that says puppy vibes overwhelm a lot of other vibes.
Yeah.
If I'm
but you should be looking at the adults as well, not just be overwhelmed.
I'm just saying. I feel like a lot of people go, And I say this just because I have personal experience with people going into a situation and saying the vibes were off. That puppy was freaking adorable. And I wanted it, and I had planned it, and I had bought its collar, and I had bought its bed,
but
and it was all waiting at
information
home.
wouldn't have mattered to them anyway.
No,
and
right?
That's what that's what advocates don't understand is some people will buy no matter what. There are people, unfortunately, that do not care if the dog came from a puppy mill, that do not care if it came from a large scale commercial breeder.
And I will say the people I know who have been in that situation, they do care.
Yeah.
And they do say, I feel awful.
But they saved
I
the
wasn't
puppy.
going to leave that puppy.
Yeah.
I had dreamed for that puppy. I had planned for that puppy. I had a name for that puppy, and I was not going to leave it. But so here's a question, because that's the whole thing. But if I'm not able to go visit, so obviously if I'm trying to purchase from a breeder and they will not let me come to their property, that's a huge red flag.
And some say it's for medical things, and I think for biosecurity, like that's a valid concern. It's hard because we've told advocates, if they don't.
Can I go to their facility and not go into their breeding space? Like I can go to, I can meet them outside.
But that goes back to the conversation of, well, that means no trust. So when we're telling people, go visit the breeder before you buy, if a breeder is communicating with you and saying hey, I have this area where you can come, you can meet the adult dogs, you can meet the puppies, but you can't see my whole kennel because of biosecurity. That looks shady on paperwork. Like if you're an advocacy organization, you're going to be like, well, they don't want you to see where the puppies were born. But it does also go back to, what else have you looked at the kennel? Have you looked at their reports? Ask if you can speak to their veterinarian. I know some vets are biased, but you are also going to get a good feeling about the veterinarian call. Can the vet tell you how often, like Marietta and Devon, they're vets at their property once a month. What can she tell me about those experiences? Where another vet might just be like, yep, they're a client, and hang up. Right? So it's like, what else can you do?
Because my other question was, what if I can't go to their property? It's not them saying don't come. It's I cannot physically go to their facility. So what are some other things I can do? And those are good. Those are good tips too. Just talking to them, talking to the vet. And
I think this needs to be acknowledged, but this is where the shame lies in too, because this is also privilege. It is a privilege to be able to fly across the country to meet the dog you want to adopt.
Or even drive across the state.
I mean, true. Like we are talking about things that people need access to be able to do other stuff. Not everyone can, not everyone will. That doesn't mean they don't deserve a dog. And so again, what guardrails can we put in place? What safety measures and educational tools are out there to make someone choose not a puppy mill dog, but a dog that's right for their home. And we don't talk about that enough. The choice of, is that dog right for your situation, your living, whatever that looks like. So there's a whole other education piece we also miss.
And that's what I think we hear the most of at events, or at least I do, is just that feeling of helplessness of, how do I know? How do I choose? And I think that's a good discussion as well, of the fit of the breed of dog with your family that often gets overlooked too. So.
Cindy's last question starts with, I found an article on the Best Friends website describing a study that compared the behavior profiles of pet store puppies with those acquired from hobbyist non-commercial breeders. The article is from 2013, but I assume it is still accurate, unfortunately. Does Bailing Out Benji have any more recent data on studies like these?
So I will give a very brief, very high-level overview of this study. Because we will link it. Someone remind me to link it in the notes. But this was done in 2013. So that is a while ago. Let's keep that in mind. The study itself was testing the, I think it was after families had purchased puppies, how their behavior was after coming from a pet store compared to families who purchased puppies straight from a breeder. There are a lot of caveats there. And I think at the time that was groundbreaking research, and we've cited it in the past. It still gets cited very often as being the only research type when it comes to the health and well-being of puppies. I would say that now Canine Care is kind of doing more of that. So like back in 2013, there wasn't as high of a focus on commercial breeders to do genetic testing or socialization, all the stuff that we've been talking about for the last year, that we're seeing as positive changes in the industry. I think Canine Care kind of saw that gap, and they were kind of trying to fix it in their way. But they're doing studies on the parent dogs and the puppies. They're also in the process of doing transport studies to see how stressful that is on puppies and what that's doing to their health. So I think that someone is trying to fill that gap, but a new study has not been created yet.
No.
So I would just say, like, when it comes to the accuracy of it, maybe look at the lens of how large that study was. And also keep in mind that was in 2013, and a lot of things have changed since then.
There's more conversation about the quality of care at commercial breeding facilities. There are now programs trying to improve that and behavior. I don't know. I do think about, like, I think it's still relevant, like, puppies being in glass boxes in pet stores during like a pivotal time of their development, and that is probably still relevant as compared to a puppy that is staying with maybe a hobby breeder who maybe has them in their home or is able to have them or their children socialize them every day. That's different than being in a glass box. So like that we can still kind of account for, but definitely things have changed.
And call back to Devon's episode. Remember the tickling of the puppy's toes and stuff?
The ENS, yeah.
So if you want to talk about that a little.
Yeah, it's ENS, early neurological stimulation. This is something that breeders can do during there's like different things you can do during different stages of their development, like when they're a couple weeks old. And basically you're just trying to like stimulate their nervous system essentially to be prepared for like just be more prepared for things that
like 8-week-old puppies experience.
Yes, like loud noises or like kind of like being flipped on their back and having their tummy tickled. Yeah, like just kind of, I don't know, desensitizing them, but like a little bit just to make them more prepared and more well-rounded, so you don't have like reactive of a dog, or that they might have those behavioral issues because they've actually been handled and they've been introduced to new sensations, new sounds, new experiences, and that's, I think, what ENS is so great about if breeders are doing that, especially if they are staying with them up to that 8-week point or older. That's when a lot of development happens for dogs, and why it's so important for ENS to be happening, and especially in those first 8 weeks.
And again, it's not all breeders. We're not seeing this happen in every commercial kennel. We haven't been in every commercial kennel. But it's a really interesting thing that we're seeing as a change. And we're like the Canine Care people, like the breeders involved, they always say you can tell the difference in a Canine Care puppy. You can tell the difference in a puppy that's raised as a Canine Care puppy. And I love that they say that. And I love that they believe in their puppies to that extent. I, as devil's advocate, think that if you walk into a pet store after the puppy's gone through the transport, after they've gone through the scary change up at the pet store, it might be a little harder to tell the difference between a Canine Care puppy and a non. But if they've been doing these things for 8 weeks, and it shouldn't just be Canine Care, but like a breeder who is actually trying, you may see the difference in a pet store puppy at that point. But also the scariness of transports and the pet store exchange is it's probably doing something psychologically to these little babies.
I mean, speaking of Devon's puppies, I think you can speak to it when we saw his puppies with a broker in Indiana, and how like calm they seemed in a new environment that was completely new. Like, I think that speaks volumes of the care happening with breeders, and as long as it's translating with the broker and with the pet store, and they're keeping up with that socialization and care, then we might see a lot different behaviors or outcomes for pet store puppies. So that might be a study if anybody.
I know it sounds like with this study being so long ago, it would be very interesting to see a new study comparing, you know, the ones that come from a good breeder, even through the trauma of transport to pet store. Are those dogs more resilient than ones who didn't come from that, or just to see those differences? It would be, hopefully that's something that that Canine Care can
Yeah.
Or
And
like,
I
we'll
would
be research girlies.
Yeah.
Let us.
like I think
I will tickle puppies.
Yeah, yeah.
and I think that would be great. That's also something I want to mention too. The
Mhm.
first study was done by Best Friends Animal Society,
Mhm.
which is through a very different lens.
Mhm.
Canine care, I think there's going to be a large swath of people who doesn't trust something coming from their lens either. So
Yeah.
if there were a study done, I would love to see it being done in partnership with people along the way.
Yeah.
So like, how do we follow, say it's Devon's puppies, and how do we follow a litter of his puppies through transport, through pet store, through purchase, talking to those families after purchase, right? Like that's where you want to see it.
And can we follow one through the shelter system?
The shelter system, or like the
And through
transport
the,
system
like-
from south to north,
Yeah.
right? To see how that affects it.
Mhm.
But then we would also need buy-in from a I don't want to say non-canine care breeder, but a breeder who doesn't do all of the ENS type trainings and follow one of their puppies. And it would almost have to be in parallel.
Yeah.
And I think that's sometimes what's missing from these studies. It's a small lens.
Yeah.
It's not as wide as it could be.
Mhm.
Great question though. I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us for this week's episode of Truth, Lies, and Puppy Mills. We actually received so many questions and we wanted to be able to give them thoughtful responses. So we ended up splitting this episode into 2 episodes. So you just finished part 1 of our Q&A episode, and tune in next week for part 2. See you then.